Hello, friends. Welcome to Weekends with Amit, and I am your host, Krishanu. How many of you like music? I hope most of you, if not all. We all like some form of music. What we generally associate with music is that it is some kind of an external tune which we like, which resonates with us, and we generally tend to feel have a good feeling inside. We sometimes sing with it, we play with it. When we are happy, we play some music. When we are sad, we play another music. But music, most of the time, for most of the people, are external. Vis-a-vis, look at our life. Our life sometimes is in harmony, sometimes it is not. It is haywire. It is very, very different at very, very different points. Have we ever thought that if our life would have been like a harmony, could have been like a symphony, playing out a tune which is in consonance with who we are? Is that possible? Today's subject is how quantum science can awaken the music of your life. I personally consider this to be a very, very interesting subject. And to describe it all, we have our two guests today, Professor Amit Goswami and Dr. Valentina Onisor. Thank you so much for joining us. Oh, look at the backgrounds. You know, the one high note, another low note. One very high frequency, the other is very low frequency. So it's a contrast which makes out a music. It's not comfortable or it's not a continuous line. Coming to this, the topic of the subject. So, Professor Goswami, can you please explain how you propose to relate the awakening of music of us in through quantum science, or first to define what would be the music of us?
Yeah, it is a little obscure in the beginning. Music is a good metaphor for how we live life in various stages of life. You will notice that we always have a generation gap in the way we enjoy music. When you are young, you like, in general, a bit of faster rhythm of music. Do, 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 reflecting the do, do, do mindset of young people. And then in your older age, beginning with midlife perhaps for many people, we prefer a different style of music, slower, more expanding classical music as opposed to modern music, popular music. That's another way of putting the distinction. Classical music is boring to young people. The opposite is also true. The fast music is cacophony to older people. And this is the metaphor. When we are young, our life is still music, but it is a bit of cacophony. Too much do, 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 reflected in the kind of fast music that every age has. Popular modern music, every age has a modern music, so called, and a classical old music, so called. And this is the distinction. One is a bit cacophonic, no offense intended. I know young people like this. And the other is more like symphony. Although symphony is just when there is a lot of harmony between the various instruments that are playing, then we call it a symphony. Okay, the harmony also can be played in one instrument, then it's called sonata, but those are minor details. It's always, the idea is always combine various notes and the whole piece, and they should represent a whole theme, which is harmonious symphony. It is this way even in Indian classical music, which is melodious rather than harmonious. Not all kinds of notes together is usually used, but the idea is the same. It still connects to the themes of life better. Whereas in the young age, what young people prefer do not reflect the themes of life so clearly. What's the difference? For the difference, you have to go to the psychology. In our young life, we are more interested in the survival needs. We, of course, explore the archetypes, abundance, power, beauty, those three especially, but we use them for survival modality, which means beauty, we make it into an entertainment. And what entertains at that age is fast music, which reflect the fast pace relative to older age of younger age. Now, why is this lost in our vocabulary these days? Nobody talks about music of our life. Nobody. Although that is not quite true. I just appeared on a radio show which actually talked about music of my life, and that precisely what gave me the inspiration for this particular topic. So there are people who think of life as a music, as a development of how it can become from a cacophony into a symphony, from cacophony into something that relates to the archetypes in a purposive way. When the archetypes are used in the material way, material abundance, material sense of power to dominate others, it is not harmonious. You're always taking advantage of somebody or manipulating somebody or misusing somebody. For example, beauty explored as entertainment has created us, given us this fame based culture, name and fame, which is very destructive to the symphony of the person. We lost our music that way. Similarly, when we explore abundance just to make money, there is no real connection to the archetypal value of abundance anymore. Abundance is for satisfaction. I'm satisfied with what I have. That doesn't come. And power is not only to get personal power, which is important, but also to share power with others, to empower others. And that goes away. Now, recently, this cacophony versus symphony of life has taken a tremendous turn, which is why we are mentioning this topic. This is very serious. Because of IT, because of all the social media, people have become so concerned about the survival modality that their cacophony of their early life has become enormous. So enormous they don't see music of the life anymore. This metaphor must still be pretty unclear to some of the young people who may not be listening to this program. We don't expect very many young people to come to our programs because young people are too much survival oriented. Consciousness raising is not considered to be very much helpful to survival until you recognize what is in really the scope of it. But if there are young people, then please notice and agree that today's lifestyle is making you dumb and dumber, devoid of meaning, life devoid of meaning and purpose. And you forget this by entertaining yourself. You try to fill up the void that lack of meaning and purpose creates via entertainment. Isn't this true? So, to awaken the music, what can we do? Some of it is automatic. When you have the midlife, then you will experience an urge to go deeper in your life, to change your lifestyle. It turns out that this change is very good for your health, by the way. If you don't make these changes invariably, almost invariably, you will end up with serious chronic disease like cancer, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. It is also good for mental health. If you don't heed to the call in midlife to slow down and waken up your music, you will invariably invite Alzheimer's disease and other dementia. Not a good prospect to look forward to, is it? Certainly, there will be fear and anxiety that will dominate your life. Look at the old people today and never forget. We tend to forget this. Midlife is truly midlife today. Begins at about 45 and people actually live through 90. I am 85 myself. Do not forget this, please. Life does not end at 30 like young people still think. It doesn't, you know. In fact, 45 is when we say that for many people, the cacophony can end and we have the option to opt for the symphonic life. So, what am I talking about? I'm talking about is disorder versus order. You know, Valentina and I are writing a book on integrative psychology. And our research is showing more and more that 85%, for full 85% of our population really, really have some complaints about the psychological being that they experience in a regular way. It all begins in the young age. It all begins at childhood, becomes worse at teenage. People do not have an identity due to the lack of meaning and purpose. People do not wake up self worth or love in their early life due to the way that we bring up our children. Our parents are busy, our teachers are too busy keeping discipline rather than teach or educate. And education is materialist anyway, very survival oriented, which does not touch the music of life. So today, this theme is very important for you to be aware. Life has purpose, life has meaning. This meaning and purpose is reflected in what we call values, human values. Earlier, we called them spiritual values. And both depictions are completely correct. A real human is not a material human. A real human has the material component, the conditioned part of it we are given at birth, part of it is shaped by environment and our reincarnations, but that's another story. And then, of course, what we make of our life, how we grow up, is the crucial point. If we don't live meaning and purpose, if we don't have a sense of directions, we never realize how beautiful the music of our life can be. So the good news is that today we have a science for understanding all this, understanding fully this metaphor and make it real. It's okay to have cacophony in the early life, provided you change at the right moment, whenever the need comes to you. Abraham Maslow said that when our lower needs are satisfied, we are ready to take on higher needs. Don't forget that. Don't go for lower needs forever. You cannot take your material wealth with you, as they say. When you die, it does not go with you. But you know, quantum physics supports reincarnation, and you do take the character you build with you. If you build your life as a symphony music, it will go with you in the next life and make life much better vehicle for exploring meaning and purpose. This is why we talk about it. But I have spoken enough. Let's give the floor to Valentina.
Yeah, we are all very interested to hear what Valentina has to say on this.
Hello, everyone. Um, of course, the idea is to start asking ourselves right now, how are we using our gifts and qualities? And if are we doing what is really meant for us? And do you live your life or do you live the life of somebody else? Because we cannot reach an authentic, stable fulfillment unless we discover and pursue our own purpose. Yeah. And now I'm sure that many people are watching this because they heard the topic is music. And yes, music, as the word says, and as being part of something which can take us truly to fulfill one archetype or even more, it's very important in our life. And there is actually how Amit started. If you heard about, of course, you heard about the great philosopher and mathematician Pythagoras, who was arguing that music, it's definitely not just for fun and entertainment, right? And this statement is, of course, supported by a lot of scientific discoveries. And the act of singing music is one of the greatest and most complex performances of human nature. And then the question, of course, arises as to how this ability could be transferred to other areas of life. So, as you see, singing music in the same way, singing your own music, you know, like think of the birds, how they are singing, how they are offering without really expecting anything. So, singing your own music and the same time with singing music as initially was intended is again really one of the greatest and most complex performances of human nature. And there are all these types of intelligence. And one of them is even called musical intelligence, artistic intelligence. Of course, you know about emotional intelligence, intuitive intelligence, creative intelligence, and so on. You know, and when we say about music and musical intelligence, this is related to the awareness of sounds and harmonies. Yeah. So music, yes, music, but also music of our lives, and back to the sound and music and the capacity to express, to embody even your archetype eventually, right? To embody all these divine attributes on earth. What can be more beautiful than that? And yeah, speaking about music, men, of course, you know, they are mainly visual, women are mainly auditive. Think of the way we communicate. Yeah, anything. Yeah, Vishuddha chakra, of course, has the main role in communication. And think of so many times when we are screaming at each other, when we feel that we are not heard, that somebody doesn't get the message of what we want to express, even if it's not coming through right. So again, uh, music, expressing yourself in the creative way, embodying all these archetypes truly and expressing it, of course, is beneficial in unblocking all the energies of creativity, especially at the level of the throat. Yeah. And there are so many ways from old times, like even singing mantric vowels that can help. So now again, I'm giving you tools which relate exactly to music and sound. Yeah, but again, deep down, this also relates to all that means creativity for us. Yeah, and for example, each vowel as each word was meant initially to be sacred and to have great power and great impact on everybody, but also each vowel has a great effect upon various bodily areas and chakras and can amplify various positive states and lead to expansion state of consciousness even. So we need to be attentive also how we talk, how we, of course, anything that we emit. It's very, very powerful, and we don't realize this most of the times. There are so many studies from infant development, language acquisition, and music cognition, and there are so many researchers which explore the role and interaction between music and language. And actually, music came first. The language part came up later. And again, back to Pythagoras, many relate from the Middle Ages. They relate to him as the inventor of music. Think of that. How is that possible? Pythagoras, right? So he discovered the foundations of musical tuning by listening to the sounds of 4 blacksmiths' hammers, which produced consonance and dissonance when they were struck simultaneously. And from here, again, another element that it's good to understand, it's about resonance. Let's see, maybe Amit wants to describe that because it's essential, and also from Pythagoras times is something which is called music of the spheres, something which is imperceptible to human ears, formerly supposed to be produced by the movements of the spheres or heavenly bodies. So music of the spheres, again, from Pythagoras times. And one more thing which I want to say now, because passing back to Amit, it's that the modern system of musical notation was invented, I think, in the 11th century by a monk, Guido d'Arezzo. And the interpretation of the name of the musical notes is so beautiful. Just look at this, do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. So do comes from dominus, a name for God. Re, rerum, matter. Mi, miraculum, miracle. Fa, from families planetarium, in Latin, solar system. Sol, from solis, sun. La, lactea via, the Milky Way. And sidere, the celestial vault. And initially, they were using the sounds ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, so to represent an octave. And later, the sound ut was replaced by the sound do, again, from the word dominus, God, for God to be the beginning of the musical letter. So how beautiful can that be? And again, that's just the introduction. Like, we could talk about this subject for months, music, and how about the music of our lives, of course. But of course, also in health, there are so many studies showing the huge role of music. There are even hospitals nowadays. I just read the last days in a hospital in Madrid, which is they're singing yoga mantras to raise the vibration before starting their work, the doctors and the nurses, and so many, many, many other things. But that's just an intro to the subject. So, Amit, if you want to talk about resonance or something else about the subject.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Shall I go?
Yeah, of course.
The concluding remarks. All right. Thank you, Valentina. And really, that is wonderful. Even the basic musical notes with which we compose music, even they reflect consciousness, movement of consciousness. So let's go over one of the metaphors that Valentina used, music of the spheres. This is how Plato metaphorized human life. Life begins when we do not appreciate the beauty that life can be, when it resonates with the music of the spheres, which is, as you know, perfection, which is reflected in the archetypes. How do we achieve perfection? Like the perfect solids, by tending to the archetypes, by exploring the archetypes. So music of the sphere represents the music of the archetypes. There is a concept called resonance in physics, frequency matching. This concept has to be brought up. So the frequency, the way we live, frequency of our life, that has to match the archetypes so that we can resonate with the movement of towards perfection. You get the picture? And so in our childhood, in our young adulthood, to our adulthood, we get bogged down with survival issues, and that's the way it is. You cannot complain too much. We do have reincarnation, and some of us do have better habits, even in early time. Speaking of myself, I never really liked fast music. First of all, I didn't grow up with it in India. Second of all, even when I went to America at the ripe age of 26, and of course, rock music was becoming very popular, I really didn't relate to it very much. When I started relating to American music, it was more like the slow theme music, like John Denver or singers like him. Jim Croce is another one, Simon and Garfunkel, that kind of music. Okay, where I ended up is very interesting. Where I ended up, and this is the good news, the more I live the symphony of life, namely in synchrony, in resonance with the archetypes, the more my life slowed down and appreciated the human values that was reflected in my character more and more. I also realized something that will hearten you, which is that my earlier life, which certainly was not directed at the symphony, at the resonance with the archetypes, but still, even in the cacophony of life, there was the future where everything becomes symphony. In other words, I started seeing the symphony existing even in the cacophony. In other words, there is no cacophony. It's all part of that symphony that is playing through your life. It's a question of how much suffering do you want to do? How much do you want to deprive of the wonderful life it becomes when it becomes attuned to the music of the sphere, when your own music resonates with the music of the spheres? If you knew that this is in store for you, you can easily have it by making the transition as soon as you feel that, okay, you have enough of the material survival needs. You are satisfied with the material survival type of things. As soon as you feel that satisfaction, turn to the music of the spheres, turn to the archetypes, change, transform. Today, as you know, we have in this organization that I'm speaking for, Center for Quantum Activism, we have master's and PhD programs that we can offer you for making the transition, for making the transformation. Our students mainly are all midlife transitioner, a few exceptions, and they are all discovering how beautiful life can be. And so can you. As my favorite saying is, from where I started, if I could change the cacophony of my life into symphony, so can everyone, and especially you, the listener to this, who already have made the first step. Thank you. Vishanu?
Great. Thank you so much. And those of you who are interested to know more about what we are up to, please visit www.amitgoswami.org. If you have anything to ask, if you want any clarification, anything at all, please write to us at info@amitgoswami.org and we will respond to you. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great weekend.